Okay, well, welcome everyone. I'm Liz Stolniker, the board president for Central Park United Neighbors. This is our June meeting, and we're at the Cube. A couple of us at the Cube, and then folks online. I'll start with just about Central Park United Neighbors. CPUN is the Registered Neighborhood Organization, or RNO, for the Central Park community. We provide a working forum for the residents of Central Park to participate in creating, developing, and fostering a vibrant urban community dedicated to social equity, environmental responsibility, and economic opportunity. At our monthly meetings, we facilitate the discussion of key issues with neighbors, engage in proactive problem prevention, and inclusive and welcoming in all members of our community. Next slide, please. Our mission is the betterment of the city of Denver by providing a forum for residents living in Central Park to discuss and resolve issues, a network of communication, a means of acting on matters of importance to the community as a whole, and we promote public service, civic discourse, collective efficacy. We're an all-volunteer board of Central Park residents, and we're a registered 501c3. And next slide. Okay, you're already on it. So on the agenda, give a quick overview. We're going to actually just start very quickly with the CPUN officer elections, then move into our community partner updates. We'll be hearing from City Council District 8, Denver Police, the MCA, and the Sam Gary Branch Library this month. We'll then be joined by our guest speaker, RTD District B Director, JoyAnn Ruscha. And then we'll also have just kind of a brief overview of exactly what RNOs are. It's an acronym that we say every month in the About CPUN blurb, but we'll just have, to give everybody some grounding in what RNOs are and what they are not, and what we want ours to be. Then we'll have a 5-minute break, and then we'll have CPUN and then just at the end of the meeting, a brief look ahead to the next few months of meetings and just wrap up topics. Next slide, please. Okay. So this is the officer nominations for the 2024-2025 kind of CPUN year. It's kind of similar to last month. It's a slate, and we had an open seat for secretary that Trisha Houston has graciously stepped up for. She's here in the room, and I circulated her statement of interest, and then you kind of know the rest of us. I am asking to re-up for president, Carol Hunter, who couldn't join us tonight, for vice president, and then secretary Trisha, and then Brian Penny for treasurer, and Amanda Alshouse is traveling, so she's also not able to be here tonight, but for past president. And so I think for the purpose of the voting, so the voting is just for those of us who are on the CPUN board. And honestly, it's kind of, I guess, is an approval voting. The slate passes.
I have one comment before, and I'm going to put Mark on the spot. We have the former president spot. Mark is past, but he is a past president.
Okay.
And so the question I have is does Mark have any interest in, the bylaws are pretty ambiguous. So there is an opportunity that if we wanted that, we could come back at a later point. But I'm just saying.
Okay.
Because Amanda is not, it's not
the most recent past president.
She's not the most recent past president, but I did just want to call that out.
Mark, do you have any thoughts to share now, or do we want to have this?
Amanda already asked and I declined, so we're good though. Thanks.
All right.
But I think as I read it, it is not it is a singular name, but it doesn't define that it can only be one person.
Okay.
So I think we should just keep that in mind, and you can keep that in mind.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
And since she's not here, I will add that Amanda admitted that it was
Exactly.
her
So
idea
I
to
just
create
looked
the
at that. That
position.
was
So I
Well,
think
I
Amanda
remember
has
we
to fill it in.
Yeah, no, I remember when we voted on, I think we voted on the bylaw change in 2021. So, okay, I guess, so just for the purposes, I guess, yeah, folks, I'm looking on the Zoom and also in, the queue. Are there any objections to that slate of officers for the next year? Seeing shaking heads, nothing in the chat. Okay, do I have to make any kind of a motion? All right, well, that slate passes. There, like, congratulations, you've got the officer. Chat secretary role, and also Mark, thank you for all of your service over the years with Sun and CPUN. And I know you're staying on the board and will be heading up the sustainability committee. So thank you for all of your work on this. Okay, and then we'll just jump into community partner updates. City Council District 8, I see Jesse, you're online if you want to unmute yourself for your updates.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yep.
All right. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jesse, and I am the senior council aide to Councilwoman Lewis, representing Denver's District 8. Here's some of the stuff that we have been working on as a council office. The first one is the Place Network Investigations, or PNI. Basically, this is a theory of a more holistic approach to reducing violence, and specifically gun violence, that is being undertaken in partnership with the mayor's office as well as DPD. Basically, we're looking towards why crime is happening in a given area. And then once we are able to figure out sort of the background conditions that are maybe creating the conditions for crime, we can send more targeted police enforcement. So it's sort of a save on police resources, as well as reducing the number of interactions that the police necessarily have with the community. This is being done, like I said, in conjunction with the mayor's office. The city of Denver received a $700,000 grant from the U.S. Department of Justice to reduce violence. And these are targeting neighborhoods with a high amount of gun violence. In District 8, there are actually two sort of hotspot areas. One of them is on East Colfax in the sort of 4-block radius around Verbena Park. And the other one is in the Montbello neighborhood. And so we're pretty excited about this program. And there are weekly updates from DPD and invested partners on making PNI work, and we have high hopes for it this summer. The next sort of major update that I have is the Senior Center. This is something that we are actually working with Councilmember Gilmore on. What this is basically we're creating a space for seniors to have a dedicated computer and tech service center. We have made some pretty good progress. We've been working with the Office of Economic Development and Opportunity to make this happen, and they were able to dig up some funds and pilot a program at the R.E.P. Taylor Municipal Center. For those of you who don't know, that's actually where our office headquarters are, out on Peoria in Montbello. And this is just the pilot program to start. It's kind of a small room, but it'll serve essentially 10 computer stations. It'll have printing, copying, anything else that seniors need to access technology. And we're really hoping that it will spur positive change in the city to develop more senior specific focuses. We would love to see the seniors of Central Park, excuse me, come out and utilize this space. It should be open by next month's meeting. So I'll have an update on that then for all of you. And we're really excited about this opportunity. And like I said, hope that we can sort of expand it into something bigger upon completion of the pilot. Finally, sidewalks. The sidewalk fee structure is still being finalized. There have been some major changes on the sidewalk fee as has been presented in CPUN over the several meetings ago at this point. They're getting closer on it. They're moving to a flat fee instead of charging per linear foot, but they're just making sure that they can get the equity concerns around the corner properties worked out in council yesterday on Monday. There was a bill basically just postponing that fee one more time to the end of 2025, or sorry, to the beginning of 2025, at which point it'll appear on the sidewalk, like as a stormwater charge on your bill. And again, I'll have more specific updates for you as we get a little bit closer. They're, like I said, they're getting close, but they're still finalizing all of that. That was basically it. There's one thing that's not on this that I did want to mention. So we have been working with Monarch Montessori on a number of things. One of them is the permitting of a yurt for their music class at the Montessori school. But in our discussion with Montessori, it was brought up that Monarch actually has sort of a lack of crosswalks and safe routes for children to walk to school and get to school in at that location. And I know it's been brought up in previous meetings in CPUN that the Sandoval campus is also missing a lot of safety improvements to get kids to campus safely. And so our office is actually working with Dottie as well as in the budget process for the coming year to make sure that we get infrastructure improvements to make kids travel to school safer at the Sandoval campus. So just wanted to flag that. It's not on the slide, but it's something we're working on. And I'd be happy to take any questions.
I have one question. This is Liz, about the senior center. So other than just kind of computer and tech access, I know it's a pilot program, but is there an opportunity to at least get, I think it's the DA office focuses a lot on kind of scams that target seniors around their phones and internet. I don't know if it's just a matter of having lit available there also, or even having kind of little workshops on digital citizenship for seniors. But it seems like that if it's possible to kind of reach out to the DA's office, it could kind of supplement what you're doing with tech access for adults.
Yeah, that's a great point. I know that the seniors who we are working with are really excited about the chance to bring sort of digital literacy programs to the senior center. It's definitely something that they're focusing on. They really want to make, in addition to being a place for technology services, I think they really want to kind of make it a hub for community for seniors to get out sort of beyond the neighborhoods and into a central location so they can kind of have these instructions. I will make sure that we are including the DAs in a list of other agencies that we have identified as potential partners for any sort of senior digital literacy classes. But it is something that the seniors are definitely focusing on their own. So, yeah.
Yeah, just speak.
Hi, I'm Kristen Fry on the board. Along the lines of the senior center, I'll reach out to you. My husband and I volunteer teaching seniors digital literacy at Senior Planet, which is a center in Lowry. It's actually a division of AARP. And we think that there should be more of these centers. So I'm super excited to hear this is coming to our area. And would love to share some lessons that we've learned over there and maybe even help gather volunteers to do some of those sessions, workshops, etc. So look for an email from me. And then I have two more questions. If I could?
Yeah.
On the first point, you mentioned more policing. With that grant, is there opportunity to invest in community supports that may improve situation and prevent violence in the first place? And or, have people go out with police to provide on the spot supports?
Yeah, so this is definitely a concern and focus of the councilwoman's office. I will say that in the budget discussions that have occurred so far for the coming year, obviously we don't have the proposed budget yet, but one of the main areas that has been identified by council members, including Councilwoman Lewis, is the opportunity to expand STAR to ensure that additional alternative resources are being provided to allow for police response to be more targeted. So again, it's a better use of police's time as well as the community's sort of engagement with enforcement. And so STAR expansion is definitely something that our office is advocating heavily for. And then with regard to the first part of that question regarding stopping crime before it sort of happens, the councilwoman has put forth a number of budget proposals at this point that basically address the social determinants of health, including like economics, including outlets for the youth to have somewhere to go in the summer months, because we know that that's a huge factor in preventing crime. I have actually led community panels on safety through environmental design, which also seeks to answer some of those questions about how do we prevent crime. Is there aspects of a particular area that might lend itself to crime more easily than others, and how do you address that? And those have also been included as budget proposals. Currently, where we're at in that process is we are working on, those have been submitted to the agencies, and the agencies are sort of chewing those over and making that square with their budgets. And then when the mayor releases his proposed budget in September, I'll have more of a formal update on that for you at that time about what's in the budget and what isn't, and what we submitted and what was included and what wasn't included. But it is something that our office is working on to sort of ensure both parts of your question are addressed, because it's something that the councilwoman is very very focused on.
I've got a question for you, Jesse. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
So my name is Mandel Russo, and I'm wondering about this policy, the P&I investigations policy, the hotspot policing. What's different about this approach versus what's already happening? Because is it not typical to see that police will be, I guess, patrolling more heavily these hotspots anyway?
Yeah, so I think this program is designed to get beyond just increasing the number of patrols in a hotspot area. I think this is looking at other factors as well. So again, it's looking towards what are the opportunities for youth and disadvantaged populations within the area? What are the environmental concerns in the area? So for East Colfax, for example, which is one of our hotspot areas, it has been identified by DPD that there is a huge gap in street lighting. And so it is theorized that street lighting might have something to do with crimes of opportunity in the area. And so it's really trying to address those base concerns. And then to the extent, and then there's also sort of the economic factors. So they're looking at, DPD and the mayor's office is looking at areas where there might be connected criminal enterprises, or maybe something about the sort of business layout that lends itself to crime, sort of a social audit idea. And so it's really more holistic. So I think the idea actually here is that when the police are involved, it is much more targeted than just a blanket. We're upping the number of patrols in the hotspot area. We're trying to remove the factors that might incentivize crime in the first place, so that when the police do have to bring the enforcement, it is much more targeted and a little bit less it's a little bit less of just a display of police presence, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. Are there some sort of metrics around how do we know whether this is being successful or not? Is that going to be shared in some kind of way?
Yeah, that should be shared. So there were a few public meetings about the P&I program from the mayor's office back in April, I want to say. And I know that he is working, the mayor's office as well as DPD is working very closely with the hotspot communities to ensure that their work is being done transparently. They do have metrics for success. I will say that East Colfax is actually, this is the second round, I think, second or third round of P&I that they've actually done in East Colfax, and they've seen reductions in the amount of 911 calls, as well as I believe violent crimes that have come out of those areas. Now, I might be a little bit off there, but those are some of the metrics that they're looking at. So there is some indication that these previous rounds have been successful. I think what's going on now is the mayor's office is trying to approach it a little bit more systematically across the city. So we have 2 areas in District 8, but there are others in District 7, and I think District 3 has a couple. So that's sort of how they're rolling this out. They're much more systematic. It will be public facing, and this should be information that is readily available to the public. And our office is happy to release any information that we have about the sort of metrics and the success of these programs. But this is something that the mayor's office has been in touch with our office as well, and city council generally. And so I expect to receive these regular updates and hope to be able to pass this information on as well, if that's not already clearly communicated to the public.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, my name is Jennifer. You mentioned agencies are involved with this. Which agencies? And is it going to be actually more talking to people in those areas, or what's the approach?
Yeah, so community engagement is a huge part of the process, and there will be regular updates to the community about it, as well as soliciting their engagement. I think the idea behind P&I is enforcement is a tool, but it's not the only tool here, and so we have to look more holistically. As far as the agencies involved go, I believe DPR, Denver Parks and Rec, as well as DOTI, Transportation and Infrastructure. I think DPS actually might be involved in this slightly as well, for those youth opportunities. Denver Economic Development Office, and then the Human Rights Office might also be involved. So there are those sort of agency tie-ins as it regards the more holistic approach to what we're doing here.
And I'm the chair of the Health and Safety Committee at CPUN. I was just wondering, you mentioned there was some interaction between the mayor's office and the community that happened in the past. Are there any other opportunities for input from the community? Also, can neighborhoods like Central Park, which do not appear to be included in this initiative, can we also continue to provide our input, or at least communicate with you all as you move forward with this?
Yeah, so answering these questions kind of in reverse, I will say that we're always happy to hear from our RNOs, and we're always happy to hear about these specific issues. So please send your feedback our way, and we can transmit it to the mayor's office. As far as further community engagement, I believe that is something that is going to be happening, and our office will make a point to call out those opportunities for further community engagement in our council newsletter, as well as the updates here. So yes, I will make sure that we provide every opportunity to let you guys know that there is further community engagement. And then our office is also happy to take the feedback from Central Park and transmit it to the mayor's office, and maybe get you guys involved in a more direct way than currently, where it's really at this point focusing on the areas that we have identified as hotspots. Did that answer your question?
Sounds great, thank you.
And I think that this is probably a good point to move into the community update from Denver Police, since that's where a lot of our questions are coming from. So I think Lieutenant Hines, you're on the Zoom.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me. For anybody who doesn't know me, I'm Kevin Hines, and I am the lieutenant responsible for Sector 1 in Denver Police District 5. And that is basically all of the Central Park neighborhood here in Denver. So a couple things I wanted to give you some updates on. For those of you who were at our last commanders meeting, we were talking a lot about the larceny issue. Larceny continues to be the leading crime in the Central Park neighborhood, both in Precinct 511, which is north of I-70, and Precinct 512, which is south of I-70. Larceny is kind of a broad description of like a generalized theft, but most often it's being driven by shoplifting, retail shoplifting in this area. To that end, our investigative units identified and arrested 5 different individuals who were just targeting the Northfield Mall area. And these individuals have been responsible for over $40,000 in proven shoplifting crimes just in that area, just so far this year. So I mention that because I think it kind of gives some perspective to the outsized effect that a few bad actors can have on crime in a neighborhood. We've filed with the DA's office, I think 36 felony cases involving just those 5 individuals so far. And just this morning, one of my detectives contacted me and told me that one of those individuals who had bonded out was caught on another felony level case in Northfield this morning. So we're continuing to work on that issue. Larceny is down 8.3% in the last 28 days. However, in precinct 511, it's still up over 90% year to date. So it still continues to be a pretty big problem for us. The other big crime problem we're seeing, particularly in precinct 511, is auto theft. I've talked about auto theft a lot on these meetings because it has been a source of trouble for us throughout the Denver metro area in the last couple of years. Although we are down about 27% year to date in precinct 511, we are unfortunately up 167% for the last 28 days relative to this same time period last year. That's being driven by a crew we believe is working, several individuals we're trying to work on identifying who have been primarily stealing cars in the southeast area of the Northfield Mall, kind of over Texas Roadhouse area, south of the theater, that area. So we've been running some visible and some undercover operations out there to try to identify and catch these individuals, but that's largely driving the auto theft increase that we're seeing in 511's area for the last 28 days. Another issue that's sort of popped up on our radar recently is storage unit burglaries. This has been a pattern that's popping up around the city, and we have seen several cases here in District 5. Happily, I can report we arrested an individual this morning who is engaged in a storage unit burglary at the storage facility at, I think the address is 5062 Central Park Boulevard, right off of Central Park there on the east side. He was in the process of burglarizing a storage unit when somebody spotted it and called it into us. Our officers got there, an accomplice fled from us in another vehicle. We didn't catch that individual, but the individual we did catch had several felony warrants. He was driving a stolen car, and we're working right now to figure out what cases we can link him to, but hopefully that'll start to put a dent in these storage unit burglaries that we're seeing in the area. Overall, total crime in precinct 511 right now is up about 6% for the last 28 days, about the same year to date. Precinct 512, we're down about 10% for the last 28 days and down about 4% for the year. Overall, as I've mentioned in the past, crime in this area tends to be primarily nonviolent. For the last 28 days, we're looking at about 78% nonviolent crime. Again, largely driven by larcenies and auto thefts. I do want to mention, though, since we're going into summer, that burglaries tend to become a bigger issue out here. It's something I've preached about a lot on these meetings. I think the community's done a much better job of securing open garage doors and watching out for their neighbors in that regard, and that has brought burglaries down quite a bit in recent years. We're down 23% year to date in precinct 511 and 30% year to date in precinct 512. So we're making some strides on that, but with the warm months being here, if your kids are outside playing and run down to their friend's house down the street, make sure they're shutting your garage door and things of that nature so you don't present that crime of opportunity. Finally, before I move on here, I've got our community resource officer, Janae Ferenz, on the call tonight. She was going to talk about a meeting we have coming up on Thursday that we'd love to have you in attendance at.
I just want to call just a time. It is 7 o'clock, so I think we'll kind of keep the questions kind of to a minimum on this update, because we also have 2 more community partners to update. So just wanted to flag that for you. Go
Sure.
ahead.
Danae, you're on mute still.
Apologies. Good evening, everybody. So just a quick update. We do have our commanders meeting this Thursday. We are going to do it in conjunction with a community homicide review. So we're going to have our major crimes division come out and debrief a couple homicides from the district. I think one of those locations were 39th in Peoria, and the other one was 50th in Orleans and Green Valley Ranch. That will be at 10 a.m. at our district station. And then as soon as that debriefing is done, we will follow up with our commanders meeting update. So everybody is welcome to attend. That will be in person at our news station. We'll have refreshments. So we encourage everybody to share this information and attend if you can. And that is it.
Okay, and just I'll follow up by email, but I think we if there is the slide deck from the commanders meeting, we have the community email going out on Monday. And I'd be happy to share the PDF of that slide deck with the community as part of our updates.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, and then well, I didn't have slide info for the MCA, but I see JoyAnn is here. So JoyAnn, if you want to give a quick update. And
it will be quick. Basically, some aquatics updates. We have started our sunset swims. Those go at specific pools until 7 p.m. And you can check the MCA website, mca80238.com, for the details of which pool offers that which evening. 4th of July, you will need reservations, and we have 2 time slots. One is 12 to 3, the other is then 3 to 6. Actually, I think it's 11 to 2 and then 3 to 6. But check the website, you'll need reservations for the time slots on the 4th of July. That seems to have been a really successful way for us to get more people into the pool on the 4th of July, instead of people just camping out and staying in one spot all day long. Member early access on the weekends, all members. So if you have your pool ID, pool pass, you may get into the pool for the first hour, and it's members only during that first hour on the weekends. So if you want to find a spot at the pools, it's best to go during that first hour. Just a quick update for the community. We need to remember that in this community, we're part of the city and county of Denver, and dogs must be on a leash. That is the biggest complaint we get year round, that dogs are not on leash, they need to be, and that people aren't picking up after their dogs. So those 2 things, as a community, we need to be much more responsible about, and just remember to if you take your dog out, please keep it on a leash, be a good example. Coming up, events, Motion Blue is Thursday night, 6:30 to 8:30. Sammy Mayfield Band will be performing. That will be up here at the North Green Amphitheater, Conservatory Green. And the movie this Friday it'll start at dark. It'll be on the South Green, Founders Green, and it's the color purple, the new one. And then on Sunday, we start up our farmers markets, and those are on the South Green again, on the south side from 8:30 to 12:30. So, any questions?
Very good. A couple.
Yeah.
So, there has been like some chatter about the website for the pool hours and them not matching what was sent out, and that the inconsistency on an issue.
We have changed to a new website, just kind of in the midst of all this. So we're making sure that information got transported over correctly. So we are having some issues with that, but it was in the transport of information more than anything else.
Gotcha.
So we are trying to correct all of that.
Okay.
But thank you.
Yeah.
And I'm just, for the folks on Zoom, I'm putting in the chat some of the MCA events that definitely.
They should be up on our website. You should have received them in the June front porch. And if not, we have some here at the Cube. If you want to swing by, and pick up a flyer.
Great. Thank you so much. All right, and then Daria, with the Sam Gary branch.
Hi, good evening, everyone. You guys can hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, perfect. So, quick notes. We do have some closures coming up. So tomorrow we'll be closed all day, all branches of the library for Juneteenth. And then same thing on Thursday, July 4th for Independence Day. Then lots of summer programs coming up. There is one that's happening on Thursday. It's going to be really fun. It's for younger kids, ages 5 to 12. We'll have a few different stations set up with like plant and garden themed experiments. And our tab, the Teen Advisory Board, are the ones who are helping run it. So that should be really fun. The Summer of Adventure program is underway. So if your kids aren't registered yet, make sure you swing by the branch and register them. This year we have lots of different sweet little prizes like pins and a zoo party at the end of summer as a completion prize. We have programs at the branch to have as part of the Summer of Adventure. The craft programs are for alternating ages, so between 5 and 8 and 9 through 13. The one that's coming up next Monday is going to be dragon eggs. It's going to be for the younger kids. And then Monday after that, on July 1st, it's going to be for the older kids, 9 to 13. We'll make some flower sun catchers. There's also going to be a family yoga program that's going to be in 2 weeks now, Tuesday, June 25th. It's super fun. You can do mindfulness activities and stretches with your little ones. It's good for ages 2 through 6, but can be also good up to 8, kind of depending on your kid. And then one that I wanted to make sure is on your radar, we are going to celebrate Frida Kahlo's birthday, and that would be on Sunday, July 7th. It's going to be a really awesome program. We'll have some music and some treats, and there'll be 3 different crafts and a game to participate in. So make sure you don't miss it. Are there any questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. All right, and then our guest speaker for tonight is JoyAnn Ruscha, our RTD Board of Directors for District B. I believe you're online, so if you want to unmute yourself, and then if you have slides to share, I think Mark, if you can let Director Ruscha share her screen.
Hey everyone, yes, I'm online. I apologize. I couldn't make it in person. I originally had this as a Zoom, and if I have a community meeting where it's hybrid, I try to go in person, but I was making some updates to this presentation and didn't want to be late. So I decided to stay put, even though I am a mere few minutes away from everyone in the room, so I apologize. And then, Mark, if you want to let me know if I'm able to share now, I will.
Yeah, you should be good to go.
Okay, thank you. Just give me a second as I find the right button and then make sure I'm sharing my window. So just give me 1 second here. Right. So you can see my entire window. Give me a second because I need to remember how to share the page and not all my notes. And if anyone wants to jump in and tell me which button to push, I'm okay with that.
Front corner.
Yeah, lower right.
Yeah.
Right hand corner, right before the Zoom bar there.
Yeah, there's like a little kind of like screen.
The monitors.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Keep going to the right.
Right.
Wait, I'm
Lower.
sorry. Are we talking about my PowerPoint page or my Zoom page?
On your PowerPoint.
PowerPoint page.
Okay. Then go to my right, and then
Now a little bit to your left, like basically it's just to the left of the plus minus bar there.
Right, that.
Yeah, there you go.
slideshow. I just can't see my notes is what I was trying to do. But and I can't see, hold on, I'm so sorry. Because when I look at the Zoom screen, I'm in like you can see everything, but on my screen, I'm in presentation mode.
Top to the slideshow.
Pardon?
There's something up at the top that says animations slideshow.
Yeah, slideshow to let you choose
Yep. So if it goes file.
being able to see our your notes and not us.
So that's what I have done. And it. All right, let me stop this and then I'm going to try it one more time. So I really deeply apologize because
Mind, I think we can all read it. And so even if it's like this, I think it's cool.
if we're okay, so then I'll go ahead and I just want to make sure folks online can also see everything. Okay, so hi everyone. So I'm gonna I have a lot of slides here. I'm not going to read this bullet by bullet or word by word. I'm gonna skim, but I wanted to make sure I kept a lot of the content. So that way, if CPUN wants to email a PDF version of this, then it's available for folks who couldn't make the meeting or thought they might have missed something. So my name is JoyAnn Ruscha, and just a quick blurb about me since I haven't, I've been to CPUN meetings, I live in the neighborhood, but I haven't presented before. I was elected to the RTD board to represent District B in November of 2022, and I was inaugurated in January of 23. Our councilwoman is my predecessor. My professional background, today, I advocate for people with disabilities, and I work at ARC Thrift Stores as the Director of Government Relations and Grants. Previously, I've worked on civil rights and consumer protection legislation as a lobbyist, and I was a high school teacher. You are most likely to catch me on the 105, the 121, the 15, the 43, or Peoria Station. I live in the East Ridge neighborhood of Central Park, just north of Stanley Marketplace. I'm very passionate about transit equity and Vision Zero, and we'll talk about Vision Zero today. And I'm really excited to be here. I am really honored to be on the RTD board, and I do my best to be a community advocate, a point of customer service, and a good representative on our board as it relates to matters of finance and transparency, rail safety, and other matters that might come before the board. So I have also put my personal cell phone. I no longer use an RTD number. It's just I'd rather keep one phone and you guys can just contact me directly. I have that kind of interspersed throughout the presentation, but it's up at the top. And I will also drop this information in the chat when we're done. So just some quick RTD news that's kind of district-wide. You've probably seen it in the news. Our downtown rail reconstruction project impacts what we call the downtown loop. You can sort of see the map here. The impacted rail lines and impacted service, if you happen to ride our light rail, is the D, the H, and the L. So the L line is completely suspended. That's the loop part. The H line is rerouted to Denver Union Station, and the D line is rerouted to Denver Union Station as well. There are RTD has a full webpage on the rail project, and I just want to make sure that I flag that. Occasionally, we do have folks who commute downtown, whether it's via the A line, the bus, or they drive their car. There are additional, obviously there are construction impacts, and RTD is working with Dottie to try to minimize those, but you can find the full project schedule and the street by street construction impacts if that is something that impacts your commute. So I wanted to make sure that I flagged that for community. I made a slide on this, the Southeast Corridor speed restrictions, just because it's been in the news so much and it might come up. I won't focus too much on it, but I'm happy to answer any questions at the end. So as you might have seen in the news, RTD initiated speed restrictions in the Southeast Corridor. And the Southeast Corridor is about 20 miles of track. It runs from I-25 and Broadway, or I should say, sorry, it runs along I-25 from Broadway all the way to Ridgegate. For those of you who were, have been here for a while, this was T-Rex, and later Fast Tracks, as well as we did some additional extensions. So the 10-mile-per-hour speed restriction, which again has gotten a lot of press play, which is why I want to talk about it, have resulted in a lot of additional travel time for folks who take those lines, and a lot of service disruption. So we had previously reduced service frequency along those lines because of the downtown light rail reconstruction project, but because of some potential track related issues, or I should say not potential, because of track issues that we found, RTD also initiated speed restrictions. So the frequency is reduced, and then there are several delays. Customers are upset. Rightfully so, mitigate those disruptions, maybe even a temporary additional service change so people can know when the train is coming, and how we can improve customer service, and that includes trip planner. So there will be a special board meeting on Monday to discuss. Again, I'm happy to answer any questions at the end, but I wanted to just put this out there because it's gotten a lot of press play and it will continue, rightfully so. Central Park we have some news if you hadn't seen it yet. So transit-oriented development. In March of this year, following an open RFP, a partner was selected to develop a 6-acre site near the station, which is essentially all of that concrete we don't use for a park and ride, and some grass, right? So the parking would be reduced to 870 spaces. It's not currently at maximum utilization now, and I don't think it ever has been. In fact, I'm sorry, it's it's actually right here in the slide. So even like 2019, which was sort of peak usage, we were only using half of our parking spaces. The project should bring about 800 or more affordable rentals, and there will also be community amenity space in this proposed development. So this June, at the end of this month, the board will consider recommended action to allow our GM CEO to enter into an exclusive negotiation agreement with the Ulysses Development Group. To be clear, the board still approves the final lease, but this just gives the go-ahead to the agency that says, based on what we know, and in that competitive solicitation process, yes, you may proceed conditionally with this developer for this type of project. The units are expected to be a mix of affordable and market rate, but again, that will be TBD based on those negotiation agreements and the final price. We do know, or we expect, that there will be more 3-bedroom units to meet family needs, and I've urged staff privately and in board meetings to, thanks to recent legislation, to offer the land or lease at less than the assessed value, so we can really get community bang for the buck. This is public land, so I think it should be put to for the public good, and get those units as affordable as possible. For those of you guys who are familiar, when we talk about affordable housing, we're usually talking about something relative to AMI, but AMI in the area is very high. So even when we talk about area, median income or family median income, that even 80 or 60% of AMI is out of reach for for many families, and is not what we would consider, affordable housing via metrics we would have used just a couple of years ago. So again, I'm gonna kind of move through this because I know we have Vision Zero on the calendar, and this is imminent before the board. But unless folks want to stop and ask any clarifying questions about what I've gone through, I'll go ahead, proceed, so we can get to the Q&A at the end. And since I can't see the
one question.
Yeah, I was gonna say, interrupt me if there's a question, please, because I'm looking at a different screen.
All right, go ahead with that since you're.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Okay. So in regards to the rentals, what in consideration is going to be done about the traffic that that's going to bring to Martin Luther King and Central Park that is already pretty bad?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, so as you're probably aware, like both like on a city level, but a state level, and I will also say it's also part of RTD TOD policy, is that we do try to encourage development along stations, like transit stations. Now, as far as like traffic, that is, I think that's more of a city question because RTD doesn't, right? We don't control the signaling streets and such. What I can say is that my understanding is that both RTD and the developer have dialogued with the city about this project, and so there have been a lot of preliminary conversations that have gone on for almost a year or better before it even got to this point to the board. So I don't mean to dodge the question, except to say that that is an area where it is completely out of RTD's jurisdiction. But I would be happy to definitely confer with the councilwoman's office and Dottie and follow up. One thing I will also just note, research also shows that the further people live away, the more congested our streets are. And so if folks are pushed further and further from the city center or our main arteries, like our main roads, that actually adds to traffic congestion in both of terms of cars on the road, but also how long cars are on the road, and it impacts traffic flow. I can say that confidently, just from a 10,000 foot view of how traffic planning works. But that's, and again, I didn't mean to dodge the question, but if there are specific traffic mitigating measures that would be a Dottie question, I'm happy to follow up.
Thank you. And then Amy has a question. Also,
Amy Campbell. I have two questions. One, is there going to be any retail at the site or just residential? And then two, since this is within a quarter mile of a transit hub, wouldn't there be reduced parking requirements for the development?
Yeah, so those are two great questions. So the first question, will there be retail? That is potential. We assume there'll be some retail, but again, that really depends on what the final proposal is. And there are a handful of parties at the table, like including HUD, and so there are a lot of I guess I would just say there's like a lot of variables that go into that. But what we've just gotten the general sense that it will be mixed use. And then to your second question, I think you said because it's within a certain distance of a station, then the parking requirements would change. The answer to that is, I would say so yes, when we're talking about like city owned property or private development, but this is public private. So it's also under RTD's jurisdiction. So while we could I don't know, push back on that, that's not our policy, if that kind of makes sense. So the answer to that is yes, but also because it's RTD, RTD is taking a comprehensive look at its own parking minimums, and that is not a policy that we disagree with, even if we have we're under a different jurisdiction. Does that kind of make sense?
I think so.
so
Okay.
just
So I guess I want to say yes, but not necessarily for the reasons that you listed, just because it's a different jurisdiction. Okay, I should have just said that.
I guess like just to clarify, it's RTD's policy to have different parking minimums regardless because it's transit oriented, even though it's not subject to whatever the regulations are, I guess, at the city and state level. Is that, I get, that's what I got, and I just wanted to confirm that that was what you were expressing.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to give that when we talk about Vision Zero, because that was something that the group also dug into. And so RTD has very general language about parking minimums that don't contradict any current initiative, but it's my position that those TOD policies should be updated by the board. so that we're focusing more on TOD. Um, and so again, like our policy does not contradict any existing state or city policy. It's just very broad. And I think we could, given that we own so much concrete around stations, go even further as it relates to TOD.
Got it. Thank you.
And so with that, and again, I if there are no other clarifying questions, I'm going to go ahead and get into Vision Zero, which will actually circle back to development and how we use our space. And I also just want to note, because I know this has been a community concern, before I wrap up, I will also give an update on, oh, sorry.
Sorry, this is Liz. I just want to let you know, just in the interest of time, I don't want you to have to rush as much, so I will get rid of the RNO. We can move that to the August meeting for the CPUN board. So the kind of material that I had for after you spoke, we'll just skip that. So keep going. But I just let you know you have some time right now.
Okay, thank you. And again, I really appreciate this, and this is something that I'm really excited about. And I have spoken with the chairs of like our Safe Streets Committee, and I'm very excited just to announce that Vision Zero will be coming to a RTD Board of Directors meeting in July. So Vision Zero, I think we are all pretty familiar with this concept, right? It's a strategy to eliminate traffic fatalities and severe injuries, just on the principle that traffic deaths and severe injuries are never acceptable. It moves from this traditional approach that puts all the onus on the individual driver, pedestrian, or cyclist, right? And goes to a systems approach and says we need smarter and safer engineering. And we have to be very, it's called redundancy in engineering or in planning or in safety planning. We put in, multiple things in a system so that we can mitigate that risk as much as possible. So the safe systems approach, which has been par for the course in most European countries for 3.5, almost 4 decades, is just now catching on in the United States. However, it is endorsed by US DOT, which also would include the Federal Highway Administration and the Institute of Transportation Engineers. And so that actually means that, for both like RTD or even the city to get certain infrastructure dollars, we have to already plan with that safe systems approach. So there are some federal dollars. There's actually billions in federal BIL dollars that are on the table that communities can't even access until they have demonstrated that they are planning with a safe systems approach. And this is something that has happened more recently in federal grants, and it's long overdue, but it's a little bit of carrot and a little bit of stick. So and I'll just I'll take a time out for a second and why is RT talking about Vision Zero, and why is your director so passionate about it from a transit perspective? So I have long been a Vision Zero advocate. That wasn't new. But after we had 2 deaths where people died being hit by trains, A-line trains in our community, and then a significant injury at Peoria Station, I kind of asked myself, like, well, if rail is part of the highway network and people, interacting with rail are vulnerable road users, then why don't transit agencies adopt Vision Zero practices? And I did a little bit of research, and I found that there isn't a transit agency in the country that has fully embraced Vision Zero. They might be partners in in a local effort, but there isn't a transit agency that has scoped its entire Vision Zero plan. And so in thinking about it, I reached out to folks at like Denver Streets Partnership, Denver Bike Lobby, etc., and said, hey, what do you think about this idea? And we all got the concept, but we weren't entirely sure in this intellectual exercise, like what would come out of it. Like maybe we go to the board, or my other colleagues, and 4 directors were engaged in this, by the way, and we come up with a couple of policies that will help local communities realize Vision Zero. But we don't know until we dig into it. So just like as a matter of background, like this started in part because of tragic accidents or crashes that happened here where people lost their life because they got hit by a train off the A line. And that was last summer and last spring, if you guys remember. And so so that kind of moves into like why RTD should adopt a Vision Zero plan. So public transportation is a key tool in achieving Vision Zero. Every local community that has a Vision Zero plan talks about modal shift. It says we need fewer cars on the road and more people on public transit, right? So we already know that in areas where we have solid public transit, like traffic fatalities are lower. And we also know from studies that when you increase public transit, there's, you can see a decrease in traffic fatality rates as well. Public transportation, as I noted, is part of the traffic network, right? So whether you're walking to a bus stop or you're on a train or you're in a bus, like everybody who's interacting with RTD services or with our infrastructure are going to be impacted by our decisions. And that also includes folks who aren't using our services. And as noted before, communities kind of need us. Like our partner agencies like Denver, Boulder, Thornton, Westminster, and and Dr. Cog, who have all adopted Vision Zero plans, they can't be successful like if we're not very, very active in Vision Zero ourselves. And if zero means zero and everyone means everyone, it means that RTD, who is a systems planner, like has an ethical responsibility to take on Vision Zero themselves. And we also at RTD have like this unique role in local transit because we are a regional and because we, Dottie doesn't run its own transportation with the exception of, some micro mobility hubs, nor does, Boulder or Longmont or Aurora. Like because we are regional and we have this wide scope and such wide jurisdictional authority, like that is it's almost like an opportunity gap for us to really go big on Vision Zero. Whereas if you go to a place like San Francisco, or even I'll just say LA, like LA Metro also has multiple agencies that provide additional layers of bus service and local service, not to mention Caltrains, which provides some train service in addition to LA Metro's train service, right? And so because we are the primary jurisdiction for providing transit, the only other one would be CDOT and Bustang. That means that there's a lot of opportunity for RTD, and we don't have as much red tape if we wanted to go big. And that's probably why other transit agencies and communities that are further along in their Vision Zero plans haven't thought to themselves, we need to integrate this into every aspect of our planning, right? Because they do have a lot more red tape than RTD would. So the community engagement, we had over 36 participants. We logged over 60 hours of community and stakeholder meetings before we submitted our preliminary recommendations to RTD in February. We dialogued with staff the entire time. They're aware of, these, they're basically a series of town halls, but it wasn't staff-led, it wasn't consultant-led. This was community-driven. We will do this is preliminary, we'll do additional engagement, including a survey that will be sent to CPUN, which hopefully, gets out to our members before a board resolution, which we anticipate happens next month. But nothing, that we have come up with replaces what could be a Vision Zero plan. But you could say we gave the agency a running head start. So we had 2 main areas of focus. We had track 1, sorry for the pun, pedestrian dignity and multimodal infrastructure. So folks could self-select, kind of what area of focus you wanted to go into. So we had community, like group-wide meetings, right? And then we would break out into our breakout groups. And our meetings were like 3 hours long every other Tuesday for weeks, right? So we were very intensive. So pedestrian dignity and multimodal infrastructure was bus stop access, ADA, amenities, pedestrian. It really focused on the pedestrian experience, bicycle, infrastructure, the cyclist, and modal shift, reducing car trips and getting more people on RTD, as well as TOD, which I'll talk about in a few slides. And then track 2 was rail and bus safety. That was more technical. So if something had a regulation attached to it or a specific standard, it probably fell under that category. So that covered things like rail stations, like transit facility design, what technology could prevent rail deaths and injuries, including death by suicide, which unfortunately has risen just right off of, Smith and Havana is actually a hot spot for that. Operator training and support, what do our staff need, and that kind of stuff. So it tended to take on more of the regulatory stuff and the technical. And again, folks could self-select, and some people moved between groups week over week. But those were the areas that the policy areas that we said we would try to cover and see what we came up with. So we did make a series of recommendations, but the big the vote and the big ask is the first step. So for any community, or or most often, it's a city, right? To make a Vision Zero commitment or have a Vision Zero plan, the step 1 is the commitment. So it has to be public facing. It has to be, communicated. We can't just say we believe in Vision Zero and we put it, in some document somewhere, or we have a press release and we're done. But you have to make that public commitment. And part of that public commitment is a public commitment to creating your own Vision Zero plan. And that is what comes before the board in July. So the plan has to prioritize the safety of all riders, and that will be in the resolution language. And it would have the equity focus, on disability access, language justice, and racial equity. And identified benchmark that the group had pretty quickly was that we hire a dedicated director of Vision Zero to lead the plan development and implementation. And so it is to be determined, and of course, this is all pending board resolution, if that would just start as a consultant or someone, a current staff person, might have this added to their portfolio. But an identified benchmark is that at some point in the near future, RTD has a staff person who is 100% dedicated to Vision Zero in all areas of strategic planning. The other component of being a Vision Zero community is that you have, roles and you have performance metrics, right? So we have KPIs. We have to track progress, stay accountable. We have to communicate with the community where we are, make adjustments as needed. And then an identified benchmark was to obtain recognition from the Vision Zero network as a Vision Zero community. Again, there's not a single transit agency in the country that has that distinction. It's like a badge, like if a building is LEED certified, right? The closest would actually be DRCOG. So DRCOG is the only MPO that has that distinction, because they do have a Vision Zero plan, and it meets, and they worked with the Vision Zero network to develop it. So the other component, of course, is that we have that regular, transparent communication and that continuous collaboration. So that means meaningful community engagement from the first step all the way through, and it's continuous process improvement. Again, we don't make a plan and put it in a folder and then say we were done. It has to be integrated into every single aspect of RTD planning and every department, essentially. And so that resolution language right now is being drafted. I'll share it with CPUN. It will be widely shared, before it goes to the board for a vote. But those are the key components of what the board would vote on. Also, fostering a safety culture. This is not something that is a direct. it's for board action, but it's not something that we specifically vote on. It's just more a general statement of principles. But RTD needs to make sure that we're doing everything we can to foster a safety first culture, right? So employees have to feel that they're empowered to like report an issue, to like, you know, raise an idea, even say we made mistakes. Because if we can't have that vulnerability, we won't have that safety first culture. So whether that is rail safety, you know, operator, you know, safety on the rail, or, you know, bus operators, you know, they're navigating large vehicles and heavy traffic, or if it's planning or what have you, like we have to have that environment that says we took a systems approach. And this, you know, we have to create that safe space to say, how do we keep improving the system? Human error is usually like not the root cause when we have accidents. That is the same for traditional Vision Zero when you're talking about just, you know, your personal vehicle. And that is the same in the transit industry. So we, again, RTD as an agency needs to move away from saying the operator did this, you know, or communications department, OCC, our operations control center, they did that, right? We have to look at that. Again, it's that systems approach and stop pointing a finger at one or two people and think, okay, how do we have those layers of redundancy to make sure this doesn't happen again? But that we're fostering that safety culture. And then the key thing here is be proactive. Like we have to collect data, identify risks, and work on solutions before the PUC tells us to do something, right? Or before we have a community, you know, like a crash, right? Before we have an incident. We do have data. We know what hotspots are. Part of Vision Zero is the hotspot planning and then incorporating that into future planning, including your financial planning. So RHC would do the exact same thing. So I'm going to move on to some stakeholder recommendations.
I'm
Sure.
sorry, we are a little bit at time now. So I think if kind of, well, one, I want to invite you back for periodic updates on this. If you can send us the slide deck and kind of a timeline, since the board will be voting on this in July. If there's kind of any action items from the community, if you can kind of send that in a separate email, we will definitely share that in our community email that goes out on Monday. But I do apologize. We do have to move on to the other agenda items right now. But I think that this is a good start, and actually we'll share this out and then just kind of stay in touch about updates on what we can do as a community to promote Vision Zero with RTD and kind of other Denver agencies.
Absolutely. And I'll note I'll send you the deck, but there's also a public facing Google Drive with documents, and it includes those recommendations and all the supplementary information. So I'll make sure to just communicate that with you. And then I know you want to move on to the next folks, which is totally fine. I did also have an update to the school tripper service because that was a question, and I'm happy to skip to that real quick, or we can do that, or you can just email that to the community regarding potential service changes in September.
Well, I can email that both to the board and to the community, but I do want to thank you, like while we're in this meeting, thank you for your work and advocacy on that. We do have, just for other folks, what we're referring to is the RTD service as of when the school year starts to the Paul Sandoval campus. Central Park Boulevard. So we have the proposed times that will kind of correspond to the morning and afternoon bell times, just generally. So I'll share that out. But again,
That adding on another stop?
It's 254th and Central Park Boulevard. So I think Director Ruscha, is that a new stop just for the school year, or is that an existing stop? I don't know. You're muted if you wanted to respond to that.
I apologize. Yes, so that is what we call school tripper service, and it is a temporary stop during the school year. But it wouldn't be a permanent stop.
And where's the stop located?
Right on Central Park and gosh, I should know, what is the cross street, 56? Paul Sandoval campus.
Oh, okay.
So it goes right to that campus.
Okay,
Yeah.
and is that a direct route from Green Valley Ranch?
So the school trooper service that no, the answer is no. Because Green Valley Ranch, because the additional service would be on the 65, and that doesn't go to Green Valley Ranch. So our GVR students transfer at Central Park Station. So there is not a direct route, and it's not for lack of advocating. And I am happy to just follow up offline about our system optimization plan and where we are in adding additional routes. But because Central Park's transit plan, which was developed almost 2 decades ago, still has not been fully built out.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for your time, and we will follow up with you offline on this.
Okay, thanks for having me, and I'll also stay as well to see the rest of the community update.
No worries. Okay, so Mark, on the slide deck, if you want to skip over all the RNO, like 101 stuff, we will just move that since our August meeting will be kind of dedicated to word development, strategic planning for us as a board. We can kind of cover that material. So now we were supposed to break. Let's just, if y'all are cool with it, let's just move right into the committee presentations. And so we'll start with, so we're going to go through education, safe streets, diversity, equity, and inclusion, I believe health and safety, sustainability, and comms and outreach. And so Trisha, I don't know if, since Carol's not here and you're on the education committee, did you want to read through this?
Oh, just the mission, you mean?
Oh, it's just the slides.
Oh, yeah, sure. Strives to provide information to all Central Park residents, policies, needs, and practices. In our school, the Education Committee collaborates with other CPUN committees and when appropriate and useful. The committee also organizes and presents speakers and events of interest for neighbors of all ages. One of the things we have been working on is a community survey to be sent out. We've met last week, we sort of honed in on 3 topics, basically. Safety, what did I say it was? Safety, I don't have it in front of me. Safety, transportation, and what's the other one? Dang it, I just looked at it too. Sorry, there's 3 of them. Transportation, safety, and what was the other one? Advocacy. Maybe it was advocacy. Okay. Volunteers? No. Volunteering. There you go. Thank you. One of the bullets. Thank you. Okay. Volunteering. We're sort of honing in on the 3 to ask the questions and to pass it around this summer to, we're trying to get it to teachers and admin that we know live here. PTA, all and try to get residents to answer. The purpose of it is that as a committee, we really need to hone in and focus on 3 things that we can really like make way on and actually make some progress on topics versus, just giant education, right? And what is specifically being needed in Central Park that we can actually help solve. Yeah, right. So one of them, one of the big ones was actually transportation. So I'm glad she was on because that question is in our survey. And so I actually will probably chat with her. And then we can sort of redefine that. So there's a couple of questions that have to do that. One of the big questions is that we have a lot of students that come from Green Valley Ranch and it takes them almost 50 minutes to get there. And there's 12 stops before they get there,
Okay.
which is ridiculous. So, and Paul Sandoval needs to have a certain percentage of students from out of boundary and it takes them almost an hour to get there. So, that was part of the purpose of it is that we're trying to get these answers so that we can then go and advocate to DPS and all the people to try to say, this is what our community is wanting. And we need to work to find a solution quickly. Like that's the purpose of it. So that's what we've been working on this, the last couple weeks, and we should be done pretty quick and we're going to try to get it out hopefully July.
Great. And I think just since you meet on the second Tuesday of every month from 5 to 6 p.m. is the next meeting date is July 9th.
I think, yes.
Okay, great.
And if anybody's interested in joining the education committee, we'll put in the chat, I think, an email to Carol.
Okay.
Yes. Oh, yes, she's, yes.
Should I put Carol's email?
You? Yes, thank you.
I will do that.
Liz will do that.
Okay.
But join us. There's lots to do.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think that like that is always a hot topic in the community. Any other questions in the room? Okay, well, just to clarify too, for the committee's presentation, part of this is just for existing board members and new board members, like part of board membership includes participation in one of our committees. And so since we have several new members and just also members reconfiguring the committees, that part of this presentation is really just for the community, but also specifically for board members to think about which committees you want to be involved in, what you have capacity for. So feel free to ask any questions, but I don't see any in chat right now. Are there any questions for education in the room? Okay, then I will hand this off to Amy Campbell on Safe Streets.
I'm Amy Campbell. I'm the co-chair of the Safe Streets Committee. My other co-chair is Carol Hunter, who's not here tonight. We meet the first Tuesday of all the even months from 3 to 4 p.m., usually via Zoom. Sometimes we have in-person meetings, which are different than that. You can read our mission purpose on the slide. It's also on the CPUN website under the committee section. And our next meeting will be in August, and possibly we're going to try to do a community bike ride. We did that last August. So to be determined. If you're interested in keeping up and in touch, you should join the listserv that CPUN has, like get tagged with the Safe Streets interest, and then we send out regular emails ahead of meetings and to like let you know what's going on. These are some successes we had over the last year. We're really trying to build relationships with a bunch of different city stakeholders, especially now that there's been a recent election. So a lot of the partners we had no longer are in those same roles at the city. So we've been rebuilding those connections. And you can see some of them listed here, our District 8 office, places around the neighborhood. We have quarterly check-in meetings with the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure, which is heavily involved in like all the street, safe street stuff we're interested in. Yes, and really trying to keep our community informed, like educated on like what's going on, and then help them become advocates for their particular interface with the city. How do we make change? That's what we try to facilitate that. I don't remember if there's anything else. Next slide.
Next slide.
Oh, that's all. We'd love to have more people involved. If anyone wants to sit on the Mayor's Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee or the Dottie Advisory Board, we'd love to have someone there to like listen in on those meetings and let us know what's going on. And you can email Carol, or you can put my email in the chat as
Okay,
well.
I was actually gonna put the just the committees, like to get on the email list for the committees. Just the general contact.
Yes.
So because you can check off what you want to get contacted about. Okay, thank you. Yes. Any other questions on this for Safe Street? All right, well, I guess if there's no other questions, we can move to the DEI committee, which would be Mandel and Daryl.
Yeah, so I'm Mandel Russo, and I am chair of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, and we strive to inform, educate, and engage with residents of the Central Park community around equity and diversity issues affecting every community member. We advocate for and elevate all community voices by encouraging greater representation of and reducing disparate impacts to underrepresented groups within Central Park. We also provide guidance and recommendations to the Central Park United Neighbors Board of and informed by the diverse population and perspectives in our community. Our meetings are the fourth Tuesday of every odd month. So we will not be having a meeting this month, but we will have one in July. And they are 6 p.m. and they are via Zoom. I just want to say that we tend to try and pull from not just community input, but from members of the committee in order to put on different, whether it be an event or something that we're working on in DEI. We're looking for those members to participate. And that said, I want to just say that Jamie Hodgkins, she basically had an idea about the art of the powwow, and that was something that we recently had in the neighborhood. And so another one of our members of the committee, Daryl Etter, he came up with an idea, and we all thought it was a great idea. And so I'm going to introduce him. You might not have seen him because, you know, he's doing behind the scenes work, but he had an excellent idea. And so with that, if you want to go ahead and step in and give it a go.
Yeah, I can take over. Hello all, I'm Daryl Etter, even though for those of you looking at screens, it says Kelly Etter. I'm using my wife's computer. So yeah, I want to talk about our next sort of DEI committee initiative here, which is doing a book club together. And I'll sort of walk through how we came to the idea and what we're hoping to get out of it. So where we started was thinking about like how to, I don't know, orient ourselves within DEI, which can be a big thing that folks have different understandings of, and to really make it specific to CPUN, like Central Park and an RNO. And where we started was thinking, I don't know, coming back to some of those Green Book principles from 30 years ago, which are things like environmental responsibility, social equity, and economic opportunity. I'll read a little from the Green Book just for context of what the social equity component was referring to way back then. So, equity, diversity, and opportunity are fundamental to the objectives of the redevelopment program. Stapleton redevelopment shall provide broad access to social, cultural, and economic opportunities for all segments of the community. These opportunities will address important community needs and enhance community stability. Successful redevelopment of the Stapleton site will be a catalyst for improvement in the larger community, particularly in the Denver, Aurora, and Commerce City neighborhoods surrounding the site. And there, I mean, even 30 years ago, we're seeing that a lot of the focus and what folks were hoping our neighborhood would do was to be welcoming and fair and to have a component of sort of reparative work, thinking about our place within a broader Metro Denver community. So that was the goal 30 years ago. In the intervening years, things have changed a lot. Denver is different, the country's different. Our broader cultural conversation about equity approaches has changed too. And so now we're in this situation where we've got income and wealth inequality that has expanded. We have housing shortages. We have housing inaffordability, one of those. Paying more attention to things like gentrification, environmental justice, and even resegregation of schools. I don't know if y'all saw the report that came out about Denver schools recently, but school segregation has a lot to do with housing. So these are things relevant to Central Park, especially in the context now where we're getting close to reaching build out and we have more sort of tangible, concrete stuff happening around land use, right? A bunch of apartment projects under construction in the pipeline, as we're hearing from RTD. So to our committee, this seemed like a ripe opportunity to try to get a little specific about how CPUN can serve a role for the community in shaping conversations, in figuring out like how do we, as an RNO, as a broad community here, try to hold those Green Book principles towards social equity. Obviously, that seems like kind of a big lift. Those are big topics, but we've got an amazing book that's done most of the work for us. So the book that we've chosen to do a shared read on is Just Action: How to Challenge Segregation Enacted Under the Color of Law. And it's actually sort of a follow-up to a 2017 book that Richard Rothstein, one of the authors, wrote, which was a more deep dive into the history of housing policy in the US. And Just Action does kind of a condensed version of that. And then he partnered with his daughter to write a book that's kind of, what do we do with that? Now we know this history, we know how our neighborhoods came to look the way they do, who benefited from these policies, who was left out, and then provides these concrete neighborhood level examples of what neighborhoods around the country have done to try to build community across these lines of segregation in our cities, and to make things feel welcoming and fair. So what we're going to do is a shared read, a book club of Just Action. And it's going to be for CPUN board members and committee members. Really, the focus is on trying to take some action items and some ideas and inspiration from the book for what CPUN and its committees can be doing. So yeah, we hope to leave each one of these discussions that we're going to do with some new ideas and also a shared vocabulary about talking about these kinds of housing and land use issues. As for the logistics, the nuts and bolts of this, what we're going to do is break it into 4 parts to make it a bit more manageable. You don't have to read it all at once. So you can see we've got once a month, breaking it up. It's not a huge number of pages each time. And I will say it is a very doable, enjoyable audiobook. So if you're someone who likes listening to things while you commute or wash dishes, 100% doable. So we're going to be talking about it for an hour once a month. This first one, July 30th, is a 5th Tuesday, but after that, it'll be 4th Tuesdays. And the format will start with maybe a 10-minute summary of the section that we're covering that day so that it can jog your memory or fill you in if you didn't get a chance to read. So that means you can participate in the discussion even if you didn't read it. We'll record those summaries. We're doing things by Zoom. But then we'll stop recording as we break out into small groups to talk about some discussion prompts and come back together as a large group to share ideas we came up with on how CPUN might be able to use the ideas from that section of the book. What we would ask y'all to do, because we would love your participation in this, the next step would be to first get the book. Within our sort of DEI framework, would encourage finding a used book or purchasing from a community bookseller. But yeah, you have time to get the book. And then we would ask you to share an invitation email that we'll send out, as well as the calendar invites to your committee members so that they can know that we're doing this and they can have the links and invitations on their calendars. So that's me saying a lot. What questions about all this can I answer for y'all at this point?
So do you have a recommended bookstore locally where we should look for it, or can we do a group order or anything like that?
So my go-to for a local black-owned bookstore is Shop at Matter, Matter. And you can, I don't know if y'all are familiar with bookshop.org, but you can select them as the local community bookstore that you want your purchase to benefit and sort of be routed through. So that would be my go-to Denver area location. But bookshop.org in general is a good resource to support community bookstores.
And I also just want to add that it is available at the library,
Yes.
both in ebook form and printed form. So.
Yeah, and is available through the library as an audiobook. That's how I listened to it my first time through.
Do you remember the times on the students?
The times of when we're having the discussions, it'll be at 6 o'clock. Sorry, that didn't make it onto the slide. So yeah, 6 to 7.
Any other questions?
Great idea.
Yeah. I guess
Thanks.
recommendations for where to shop in the chat as well. There.
Absolutely. I'll pop those in there.
Jamie had a general question about why are all committee meetings on Tuesdays? I will be honest, I think that part of it is just the availability of the Zoom. When we were previously using the city's Zoom account that they have for RNOs. And I think it was partly that, and also just that because we have our monthly meetings on Tuesdays, people generally seem to have Tuesdays, but it's negotiable, I think, based on people's availability. So, okay, well, thank you so much, Gerald. We're going to move on to health and safety with Jeff.
So I'm Jeff Barron. I'm the chair of the Health and Safety Committee. We've been dormant for a little while. But we are trying to start things up. David Kugler and I met yesterday, so we had a chance to kind of put some initial ideas together, and we're going to build on some things that we've been doing in the past, but we are hoping to inject some new energy into this committee because it's one that is, you know, it overlaps with a lot of committees as well, you know, but it's one that we're hoping can at least be a useful part of CPUN and something that can contribute to the community. So Liz was nice enough to put together some mission statements from what we had on the website,
Yeah,
which is
slide.
no, I appreciate that. I mean, there's some good stuff here, although I would just say that we are in transition. And so we are looking to kind of come up with what we really view our mission and purpose. Definitely, we want to connect the community with resources and services relating to health and safety. We do want to partner with, you know, other organizations, other parts of the community that are involved with this. We do, I like that you put the quote at the end there about a safe community is more than a community without crime. It's a place where everyone can live, work, and play in healthy and happy ways. You know, we support all these ideas. We have expanded to not just be safety, we are health and safety. So we want our remit to be more than just crime and talking about crime and, you know, listening to people talk about crime. So anyway, this is sort of a good starting point for us. Is there a next slide, Mark? All right, so these are the things that David and I talked about. And these are just some what we're calling kind of our initial areas, you know, where we're hoping to kind of focus. So one, obviously, we're going to field health and safety concerns from the community for CPUN. So when things come in, they'll be routed to us. We're going to embed ourselves in groups across the city that deal with health and safety with the hope of learning from these groups and increasing networking and sharing information both with them and then also anything that we learn, we're hoping to bring back to CPUN and also to the wider community. well, we really want to collaborate with other committees who put on events or lend our support. Because as I said before, there is overlap between what we're doing and, you know, safe streets and education and diversity and inclusion. So we do want to collaborate with other committees as well. We will initiate outreach to Denver Police Department regarding new development in the community. Amanda Allshouse is also on this committee, and she actually started this with an outreach to Lieutenant Hines about new development and how that could impact health and safety in the community. And also, we just want to better understand police data because we hear a lot of numbers. We hear these kind of statistics, and we want to try to understand that. We have a lot of expertise regarding that on this board. So that's a goal. And then the last one is really an aspirational goal. We want to help the community to access accurate data about health and safety. We feel like it's a time of disinformation and misinformation and people misunderstanding information. So we want to try to get out as accurate information as we can into the community regarding these topics. And then also just continue to lend our support to progressive policing initiatives in our neighborhood. I think that's everything. David, anything to add?
You got it.
Okay,
I have a question.
sure.
So healthy, when you say health, like I've been confused by this all year. Like,
Okay,
what is the health portion?
well,
Safety, I get, but
really where it came from was that the issue of homelessness was getting put under the safety committee, it seemed. Like we were dealing with issues of people having complaints about you know, people who were homeless and in the community and camping and things like that, and their health reasons, their health things attached to that. You know, if they're camping and, you know, they don't have access to bathrooms or whatever, you know, there's issues there. So that's really where it started. That said, we don't have a specific committee that's looking at, you know, health in the community. We certainly have Anschutz right on our doorstep. We have a lot of people that, you know, are associated with Anschutz that live in our community. So we're open to expanding beyond just, you know, crime and safety. Open our topic area, broaden it a bit and see where it goes.
I think, I feel like under health, it's more public health, like the idea
Yes.
is kind of not just because there's medical health, mental health, but my
Yeah,
understanding is like it's a public health approach to safety so that it's not just under like law enforcement and crime are part of this,
Yeah,
but it's again, more holistic view of the issue.
I mean, we talked a little bit, I think it was brought up by Jesse, the STAR
Yeah.
program and things like that, where, you know, you're not just having police respond and you're having, you know, health workers involved with that. So they are we see them as connected. We're still kind of working through
so
exactly.
I wonder if like maybe there would be health is just, it's kind of I don't know, it's a very broad term. Like it would be maybe, maybe just a different, like broad, not as broad term of health, but like if it's public health or public safety or something that would give it a better idea on what it actually is. Cause I literally have been confused all year.
Well, I'm sorry, you're confused, but we'll definitely take it under advisement. If there's any ideas.
If it's
how to-
community health and public health, or like what you're saying as far as like, it's the initiative of what the health, what are you talking about when you talk about health? Cause that could be, Anschutz is, you know, health, actual health, like RNNs and doctors and whatnot, but are we talking about community, more like public, what you're saying, like homelessness and whatnot, like things like that?
By saying, yes, we're talking about all of the things.
Right.
So it is purposefully vague so that any issue can be contemplated holistically and addressed, right? So the in the original renaming of that, it was we were in the midst of a global pandemic. And the idea was to refocus our energies and our intentions by thinking more broadly about healthy communities tend to be safe communities.
Right.
Safe communities tend to be healthy communities. And how do we build both in this neighborhood?
That's a good way of putting that.
Yeah.
And
It's not fully clear though.
Yeah.
That's the problem. So that needs to be much more community, like community health.
actually, community.
Well, that's what we were just saying, just add community, and I think it actually makes it.
Right.
Yeah,
It
and
works
if this conversation inspires people to get involved with our committee, I would be open to others because it's been a committee that's been fairly small and, not well attended. So we're open to all ideas or, if anyone is enthusiastic about it, let us know.
So I do have, so I saw that you're planning to meet in August and then kind of even.
Yeah, we were thinking
months from
every
the.
other month.
Yeah, and just so you know, you guys will be kind of in the hotspot because our September meeting will actually be in community safety. So
Okay.
I think that what Amanda has been working on trying to get better police data or like better contextualized, better contextualized police data. So Lieutenant Hines will be doing a deeper dive on that, but we also will be having speakers presenting from the task force to reimagine safety and policing.
Great.
So that we'll get,
Meetings.
yeah, and so that actually is kind of going to be the big topic of our September meeting. And so if you all want to have input into how that looks, I think that would be a good kind of like.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Question, did you have a question from somebody?
It was
It was
a comment
it's a
about,
comment from Daryl. So
no, I was just gonna say it was a comment that the health component folded into connection to the Colorado public health
and environment.
environment.
Somebody said it'd be great if help safety.
It's great to have that connection.
Sorry. But I was also thinking. I'm new on the board, so I don't know anything. I'm brand new, but it seems like there's a lot of kind of like existential crises going on in the committees of like, what are we? What are we trying to do? And we have the same kind of questions on education, like, what are we trying to cover? And how do we, there's so many things that we could do under that. So doing the survey to understand what the community wants us to focus on so that it'll help us kind of stay focused. And maybe it's just for this year or this quarter or whatever. If we need to do another one next year to see what's the focus for next year. I don't know if it makes sense to do a combined survey.
So we do that, yeah.
But the questions we're asking, well, I don't know.
They're very, so yes, I should know what you're saying. It's like, everything is so broad, right? Every committee has this big, broad thing, right? But then nothing moves the needle. We don't solve anything and we don't really bring information. We bring information to people, but we don't really give them specifics, right? So the education committee, there's a lot of stuff in education that needs to be solved, which is very overwhelming. So we're just gonna focus in on like 3 things that we know are issues in the community. And then we're gonna ask questions on, like, we have like 20 questions of things that we've seen and heard people talk about and what is really on people's minds right now, so that we can really focus on what the community wants CPUN to do versus just being so broad.
Yes, I mean, we do ask questions in the annual survey around this. It's difficult with the committee's been sort of associated with crime for a while, and so when people give us feedback, it tends to be concerns that are legitimate, but tends to be the same types of concerns over and over again about crime. And we're trying to think how we can get beyond that conversation to expand it. I mean, obviously, we're available to receive any feedback or any concerns that the community has about crime, but at the same time, we have Lieutenant Hines. He comes every month. He gives us an update. It's an extensive update. So we don't want to just repeat that. I think you know, again, it would be great if we had some specifics at this point, but I think we're early in the process of trying to figure that out. And we're open to any, any thoughts on that. We have a couple thoughts to start us off.
Yeah, something that I had mentioned yesterday when we were talking was about how like literacy levels in third grade are a predictor of who's going to prison. And so like collaborating with like the education committee to like figure out like what are the literacy levels in the schools in Central Park, and then are like, okay, then what does that mean 20 years from now? And are they feeding into the jail that just also happens to be in Central Park? So like that's kind of like that was one thing that I was thinking about, and about like in terms of like collaborating with other committees around like education impacts safety, like sustainability impacts like our health, like Suncourse down the road, like all of these things are overlapping. So like that's
And I would also, I
Too.
would also just say that part of this is we don't have a monthly meeting in July. Partly because the idea is for committees to kind of either with new members, new board members, to kind of do some of that planning. I think that's something like DEI has a very kind of specific initiative that is kind of currently happening. But I do think that some of, I guess like, I just want to say, like, don't be afraid of the like existential like questions about your committee, that's part of the work that we're doing in this meeting today. And that's part of what hopefully you'll be taking into the conversations. If your committee is meeting in July or August. And I see that Director Ruscha has a question, has her hand raised. So if you want to unmute and just ask the question, feel free.
Thanks. I'm actually taking off my RTD hat and putting on my day job hat. So I just wanted to note, like for this or any other committee, I work in disability advocacy. And so I noticed that literacy was mentioned. And so one of the areas that I have worked on is also like incarceration, and including that of folks with disabilities. So just wanted to just kind of share, like, I'm happy to be a resource in that avenue as well. And I would be happy to connect this committee or other committees to other organizations that are kind of working on that in that intersectional space on a local policy level, if that's desired. But I also appreciate what I heard tonight as well. So thank you.
Thank you. And if you can just share, I guess, like your day job contact information in there, so that folks on the committees will share it out with all of the kind of committee chairs and board members too, because that would be a great resource.
Absolutely. And just if for any reason someone is wondering which email to email me at, it's all fine, but I will absolutely do that. And thanks again.
Thank you. And then
I just want to say quickly, that's the most conversation we've had about this committee, I think, and I want to thank everyone for actually speaking about that. That's good to hear.
Well, something that I do want to do is figuring out the balance between having, because we generally kind of do very rote community updates. And I want to get us out of that kind of habit, because I do think we need to have these conversations together as a board. I think that sometimes the discussions we have tend to get siloed into the committee meetings and don't actually come up in this way. So I appreciate the conversation and want to find ways to have more breathing room to continue them. And then also so that the committees can kind of move the needle on whatever their goals are in committee. So many connections. Yeah, exactly. So Mark, if you want to present on sustainability, I think this is another one where it's a fairly open-ended, and then we can just do a quick wrap up after you're done on sustainability, and I'll briefly mention comms, but that's also connected. But Mark, if you want to just talk about your sustainability committee.
Yes, sorry, I was trying to, but I discovered that holding down the space bar not only unmutes me, but also advances the slides at the same time. So that was not working well. And actually I appreciate the timing of your mention, Liz, of the plan for July to be the meeting parts, because Brad and I have been co-chairing the sustainability committee for the last year. Over the years, while I've been involved with it, we've focused on a range of activities, including educating community on EVs, as well as home electrification. We've done a couple things in the last couple of years. We've also, a while back when Jeff Horsfall was involved, we did a survey of the folks who were on our list, and there was a lot of interest in both those two topics as well as some of the garden and lawn replacement topics. So my guess is that over the next year, we will do some activities or educational efforts on those topics. But I don't want to speak for anybody, because I like to go with if you'd like to bring forth a sustainability idea and lead the effort on it, the sustainability committee is at your disposal to help with that. And we haven't done that planning yet. So at some point in the next month, we will do that. Please do. I'm going to put an email in the chat right now, because it's not a regular email. It's a specialized one for the sustainability committee. So do email sustainability@centralparkunitedneighbors.com. Hopefully I spelled that all right. If you're interested in sustainability or joining the committee or helping lead anything. I think last year also one of our topics that I forgot to mention was we did it was a different form of the food collection event. So instead of it being non-perishable foods only, we actually did one where people were encouraged to bring their harvestable produce along, so that we could donate it to some of the groups and organizations in the metro area that help provide food to those who need it, and including the harvestable stuff. So people brought apples and tomatoes and whatever left over from their garden. As you can guess, then there was some zucchinis, because that always seems to be something people are trying to give away in the fall. And if there's sufficient activity, interest, and support for doing that, that'd be great. We, a few years ago, also did a mapping of the fruit trees in the community, including those on MCA managed property, where folks in the community can harvest those produce as well. And I will say that this appears to be, for those of you who have seen the peach trees around the neighborhood, a great peach year. My trees are very full with fruit, and the other peach trees I've seen have theirs. So that might be a fun event that we end up doing. But be on the look, or let me know if you want to join in the planning of the committee meetings this year. Like health and safety, we haven't had great attendance, but we have been able to still put on some pretty good events over the last few years that have had decent attendance, and then we record those and we put them on the YouTube channel for the community, and that works out well. And then Liz, I'm happy to let you take the lead on this, but there are a couple things I want to make sure we cover on the communications and outreach front, having been working on it for the last year too, if that's okay. But it sounds like I'm doing it.
Yeah, no, so communications and outreach historically has met on the third Wednesday of each month from 7 to 8. But now that we have a new secretary, I think you and I, because it's basically the secretary and the board. Oh, yeah, no, I know, it's not on Tuesday. But anyway, we should get together and just see what your availability looks like.
Yeah.
But I do think that if this is the last committee coming up, it's mostly only made up of other board members, although it is open to everyone in the committee. But I think that this is one that is incredibly important, because the purpose of a registered neighborhood organization is to basically be a channel for communication between the city and residents. And I think that we have a lot of work ahead of us, just kind of thinking about how we want to approach it, and what is both effective and productive outreach, what kinds of outreach efforts we want to do. So anyway, I'll stop there. But Mark, I know that as the outgoing secretary, if you want to share any thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, there are two elements that I've been heavily involved in recently that I wanted to make sure to highlight as efforts that I consider falling under the community committee. One is the Central Park Classic mini golf tournament that Matt and I organized or helped lead this last year, and did so with additional folks the previous year, which helps fund our Zoom account and our website and all the other things. So if you're interested in joining us for fundraising, please let me know. And then the other item is the community survey that we've been doing on an annual basis coming up. We may need to tweak our approach there because I was informed by Brian Weber of this foundation that they will not be renewing their SurveyMonkey account. So we may need to add that to our next year budget or come up with some plans there. I'll do some research on it in terms of the budget piece, but for the education committee or for any other committees that have community survey questions, for those who are new to the board, I've been working in survey research for over 25 years now. So mostly in the political sphere, but also for a range of nonprofits. So I tend to lead some of that because it's just what I do for a living and have done for a living. And B, what I've generally found with community surveys is single topic surveys fall prey to self-selection bias, where only those who are have passionate, strong opinions on your issue take the survey. Our multi-topic surveys tend to get broader responses and thus hopefully more accurate depictions of the community as a whole. So that's just the advice I will give of, if we can, it's best to try to do multi-topic surveys in my experience. And then the third piece that I would love to plug as something for this committee, because I do plan on hopefully being involved in the committee if I'm allowed, and if the two of you will accept me into your club, is I would love to have our organization go back to having an official block party day like we used to have, because it really helps with something called social connectivity in our community. By having people know their neighbors well, it helps with a lot of the other things we've been talking about. And I've noticed in our annual surveys that the number of blocks, or the number of residents reporting that their block had a block party, has dropped precipitously. I think it was somewhere around 50% several years ago. And then we stopped doing an official block party day because we stopped doing it in deference to Denver days in August. And our number, I think this last time, was down in the 20% range. So we're losing a lot of that social connectivity that I think we really need, because the in-person part tends to be much more cordial and friendly than the, shall we say, Facebook social media type. So that would be the plug that I would put in for some of the things that committee also can and should and has worked on.
Thank you. So for the comms and outreach committee, I guess we'll get together, see, I mean, maybe the third Wednesday of next month, but we'll send out the information on whatever the next meeting will be, and we'll include some of basically what is on there, and also what you've mentioned, Mark. I do think if we want to just kind of move to the next slide, actually, it's the final, I think, yeah, since we're kind of wrapping up, I think that there are some of these things we can take into the August meeting. I do think that the block party, or at least some sort of community celebration in the fall, because Denver days, it's really hard. Like, people are traveling and it's always so hot. So I think that maybe planning for some sort of community event or block party events in the fall is a little more feasible. But I think we should talk about that in July. But anyway, again, committees that meet in July or can meet in July, work on that. I also want to say, as part of the discussions that the committees have, please think about budget requests. If you have any events or any sort of outreach materials, or however you want to, I guess, whatever your goals are, if there is something that requires budget to accomplish them or achieve it, please kind of just you can reach out to me just about what does the budget request look like, but just kind of think along those lines.
Reach out to me, yeah.
Actually, yeah, and Brian, actually the treasurer is probably the more appropriate person to reach out to for it. But also, if you want to just let folks know what I guess things are.
Well, I mean, I think we're always in a precipitous point because we never know. But fortunately, this month, the MCA came through with their annual donation of $3,000. The final numbers from the mini golf tournament ended up, it was around $2,000, which three. That's right, because of the seminar, yeah, $3,000 for each of us. And so we are in an actually decent financial position, but the issue is,
The reserve that you like to keep.
well, we always try to keep $5,000 and we're at about 10. But we also have to budget for the next year's operating expenses, so that will be part of it. So we'll also in August, we'll have to approve our annual director liability insurance policy, which is about $800. And it's not like we have huge amounts of money to spend. We'll have to look at that. Yeah.
I would say, yeah, on the Survey Monkey thing, if, Mark, if you can help with just getting the budget impact for that. Something I was going to do is that the INC, when we did the DEI specific survey back in 2021, I believe, we actually partnered with, Denver INC, which is Inter-Neighborhood Cooperation. They had a Survey Monkey, account that we were able to piggyback on. And used for our survey. So the logistics of that were a little funky. So I mean, I would say that that's kind of like a plan B if necessary, but wanted to put that out there as an option. And so after July, we'll have our August meeting. And so we will not have a guest speaker for that. It really will be, the idea is just to have, I don't think we should have community partner updates. It really should just be board, kind of board focused organizational development and strategic planning, so that we can kind of have these more open-ended conversations with, you know, some action follow-up. And then in September, we will have community safety presentations from both DPD and the Task Force to Reimagine Safety and Policing. Our October meeting is what I'm shooting for. So we actually will have a joint community forum with the East Colfax Neighborhood Association and the Northeast Park Hill Coalition. So those are the other two Northeast Denver RNOs that meet on the third Tuesday of every month. And so I reached out to the leadership in both of those organizations. They are very excited to have an opportunity for our groups to get together. I'm meeting with them the first week in July to kind of start some of the initial planning. But basically, in all of our neighborhoods, the issues of land use and development are kind of like the main issue that is bubbled to the top, and the way that the city does and does not respond to the needs of each of the communities. So we're hoping to reach out to, so CPD is the acronym. We're hoping to have a representative from community planning and development from the city there, but also to have an opportunity for people in each of our neighborhoods to really actually share about like what is the impact of like how the city deals with these issues on that, and find points of alignment and points of collaboration. So anyway, so that'll be October. And then if people want to like work on the community block party or community celebration, we will need kind of a planning committee that's like working on that. So I think we'll touch on that in the July comms and outreach. And then I'll just follow up. And also just following up on the Hope for Humanity affordable housing, my tech support letter issue that we can vote over email. Any final questions? We're now at 8:38, so I would like to let you all go.
And to follow up, typically for the new board members, November, December is a combined meeting sometime between the two holidays. So just so you can plan that, we do not have a meeting the third Tuesday, which is always generally around Thanksgiving. And then the third Tuesday of December is always around Christmas.
Yeah, so the combined meeting, I think last year was the first Tuesday in December.
Yeah, we always had to fight for the Zoom, but now
we don't. So, okay. Well, I think that with that, everyone go enjoy your summer.
And those of you that don't celebrate Juneteenth tomorrow.
Juneteenth is Friday.